Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hailing from. This is Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents. I'm Eric, the IT guy Hendricks, and joining me every episode is Mr. Brian Smith. How you doing, Brian?
Good, good. How you doing this week, Eric?
I declined to answer the question.
One
For
of those
those of
kind of
you
weeks,
that don't know, Brian and I work in the RHEL BU, and I'm on the technical marketing side. So right now is we're getting close to release Christmas, which means that we've got RHEL 9.3 and 8.9 coming up. I'm confused as to what version it is because we have what's out, we have the beta that's out now for the next release, and then I've been on 2 meetings this week about the future of RHEL 10. So I don't know what version it is. I don't know what year it is. So maybe our guests can help us today. We got an exciting show for you. We'll be talking about building compliant images with Image Builder, and that title is incredibly loaded as to what's actually going on in this episode. We talked about Image Builder a few times. In fact, one of our guests is Mr. Terry Bowling, Mr. Team Money. He's been a guest with us a few times. We'll be talking about Image Builder, and around the 9.2 release, we introduced the ability to include compliance configuration inside of your Image Builder images. So if you're involved with healthcare, HIPAA, if you're involved with payment, like credit card payments or something, you have to deal with security compliance. And then we'll talk about how to tie those two things together, how to pre-build images with that already included. So there's a ton of content to get to, and we actually have 3 guests today, so there's 5 of us total. It's going to be a packed house, but looking forward to diving into it. And hope you liked the new intros. Really excited about those. We introduced Into the Terminals last week, and today got to introduce RHEL Presents' new intro bumper. I'm really excited. It's fresh, it's modern, and gotta love the music. So shout out to MindGeek. Tech Geek, Mind Geek. I'd have to go check it out, but awesome job. Really love them. But with that said, let's bring in our guests.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone. We got a packed house, so we'll do a quick round of introductions here. Mr. T Money, you've been on the show a couple of times, but for those of you that might not have met Terry, would you mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Terry Bowling, and I work with all of the folks on this meeting on a regular basis, so that's pretty fun. I am on the RHEL product management team, and I'm focused on our image builder tool, basically anything that you use to install or assemble RHEL. I'm focused on that tooling and experience.
Awesome. Thanks.
Welcome.
And Amy?
Hey there, I'm Amy Farley. I am a product manager that oversees everything in terms of identity, security, and compliance. So I'm in charge of bringing in all the features that are needed for you to be able to execute on a good security strategy.
Awesome. And then Mohit?
Hey there. Thanks for having me on. I'm Mohit Goyal. I'm part of the Insights product management team, and I focus on the security services, so namely vulnerability, compliance, and malware. And I do work very closely with Terry and Amy in collaboration to support RHEL and security there. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm glad to have each of you, and I feel for you, Mohit, because I get to work with Terry every week. So I don't want to.
Always easy.
That's right. It makes an interesting combination. So I don't want to spend too much time on a high level overview. But Terry, would you kind of quickly tell us what Image Builder is and the problem that it's trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had trouble finding my mute button there. So what Image Builder is it's a tool we've been working on for the past few years, and we're kind of reimagining how you assemble RHEL in a customized way to suit all of your needs. So traditionally, we had our RHEL installer, and we had our kickstart automation capability with the installer. That is heavily used and relied upon. But what we were really looking at is as the ecosystem evolves and the modern cloud evolves, customers need to assemble and essentially build RHEL in different ways. They need new tools that help them efficiently build for any platform. And our customers often need to define usually a few standard gold images, if you will, or a definition of what their RHEL operating system needs to be for them that meets their standard operating environment requirements, security compliance requirements, and other things. And then they need to consistently build and deploy that in all of the different environments they run in, whether that's on VMware or bare metal machines in their data center or in the public cloud environments. And they're really looking for tools that take that technical debt and technical burden off of their shoulders. Let Red Hat figure out how RHEL should be properly built for VMware, Azure, AWS. Let Red Hat take on that burden of defining what that should look like. And then the customer is only responsible for their unique customizations. So our goal is to make it really easy for customers to build RHEL according to their environment or their workload needs and easily build and launch that.
So Terry, we have two different versions of Image Builder, if you will, the on-premise and the Insights Image Builder service. Can you talk about kind of what the differences are between those?
Excellent question. Yeah, so let me just share my screen because that way you can all see it directly. So what you're seeing here is the graphical user interface of Image Builder as installed on a RHEL 9 virtual machine. So I'm logged into the RHEL web console, and so you can see here that the local host name is just RHEL 9 demo. This is just a virtual machine running on my laptop. But essentially, this is the tool, the RHEL Image Builder, that we ship as RPM packages in the RHEL distribution, so you could install it on your own local build node. Then we also have at console.redhat.com, I hope you can see the URL well enough here at the top. This is Red Hat Insights. And so this is basically a hosted management experience where just like you go to the AWS console to launch and manage your cloud account, or the Azure console or the Google Cloud console, all of the public clouds, they all have a console interface. And so that's where you can log in, you can manage your cloud environment. Red Hat Insights is our way of providing that kind of single pane of glass that all of your RHEL systems, actually your Red Hat product portfolio, whatever you use from our product line that you're using, has an Insights experience, so that you can come to Insights and you can see and manage different characteristics of that, regardless of what environment it's running in. So you might see systems here that are registered and checking in, but they might be running in every single cloud environment, or on my local laptop's KVM host, or in a data center. And so that's a poor explanation of Insights. But the Insights Image Builder allows you to be able to come here and you can create a new RHEL image, and it's going to provide a guided wizard. So no matter if you're running the Insights Image Builder or the RHEL Image Builder that's shipped as the on-premise tool, you have a consistent, concise experience of how do I define RHEL according to my needs. And with Insights, you even have the ability to launch. So once I build these images, I can even launch them from the Insights Image Builder. So it gives us additional capabilities that you would have to manually take care of yourself if you're doing it on-prem.
One of the things I really love about this concept is most environments nowadays are hybrid or at least multi-cloud, meaning that you may have bare metal servers running in a data center. You may have virtual machines running on top of something like OpenStack or VMware. And then you might have something in AWS, and then you've got Microsoft SQL servers that you want to run as close to Microsoft as you can. So you've got some RHEL systems running out on Azure. The beautiful part about all of this is that you can customize your image and deploy the exact same blueprint on all of those platforms. So I know as a systems administrator, I had a handful of 3 or 4 tools that I wanted to use on all my systems: diagnostic tools, performance tracking tools, things that I myself wanted and included in our team's golden image that we would then build workloads on top of. But I wanted those things like Vim Enhanced, Tmux, things like that. I wanted those on every image, so I knew that no matter what system I went to, I had those tools. And Image Builder helps get you there. So I want to pause on that for a second, and I want to kind of define the rest of the story. So Amy, could you give us a look at what is security compliance? How does that factor in? What are some of the different compliance organizations and shall we say certifications that we might come across?
Yep. So when it comes to compliance, we know that our customers have particular security benchmarks or security profiles that they're trying to meet. So if someone is in the federal space, they are required to abide by the DISA-STIG and to deploy machines that are hardened according to the DISA-STIG framework or policy profile. We also know for some of our financial centers, they are required to abide by PCI DSS compliance, which is for the credit card and monetary governance bodies. We know that we have healthcare, which has to abide by HIPAA. And then there are things like the CIS benchmark, things like that, where we know that as a customer, you have a security framework or a security baseline that you have to have and you have to meet in order to be allowed to deploy your systems wherever, whether it's on-prem or in any of the cloud. They need to meet a particular profile, and you will have auditors checking and security auditors, CISOs, external bodies, whatever, having to vet that. This takes time, this takes resources. So in terms of compliance, we're trying to address this issue. Forbes has the idea, and I think CISA has talked about it as well, that there is a cybersecurity poverty line. What it means is, 1% of companies have enough money and resources to be able to do everything they need to do and be well resourced. Everyone else falls below that. So what we're attempting to do within RHEL and within Red Hat and within this compliance experience between Image Builder and Insights is to help you lower that barrier to entry, to give you a faster time to deployment, to make sure that you're able to check off your auditor compliance checkboxes, and that you know that you're deploying your machines into an area which you may or may not control. Clouds are running on other people's hardware, but you're deploying in a manner that is consistent and it is compliant with the hardening guidelines with which you have to abide by. So we take that and we roll it in, trying to make it cost less in time, in headcount, or in just effort to be able to get your machines deployed and into production.
So you're telling me that Red Hat is trying to take away the multi-thousand row spreadsheets I used to have to collect from all my systems to turn over to an auditor every quarter?
We hope that we can print out reports that will replace you having to build them yourself.
But that was so much fun, especially when my laptop had so few resources that you'd go and try to open that spreadsheet and your system crashes. I mean, you're taking away my livelihood, Amy.
Yeah.
And Eric, how many hours of your life did you spend in that?
You make it sound like a bad thing, Eric.
Eric,
a reboot is needed every now and then.
You've just been replaced by Insights, Eric. So, so we had Terry cover, Image Builder. Amy's talked about, why compliance is important. Mohit, could you cover a little bit about what do we offer on Insights as far as compliance goes?
Yeah, absolutely. So Terry started on the right topic here and the right direction. I'll just say, you said the word about one single pane of glass, and it made me think about one console to rule them all, so to speak, right? We have multiple products in the Red Hat portfolio, namely three that Insight supports: RHEL, OpenShift, and Ansible. And specifically for the purpose of this discussion, the security services that are there for RHEL are vulnerability, compliance, and malware. And if you are looking at regulatory compliance policies that your organization needs to adhere to, taking OpenSCAP and deploying it on RHEL systems can be a little bit cumbersome. And deploying these things at scale using OpenSCAP Workbench can require some operational overhead for you. What Insights has done is, behind the scenes, you must use OpenSCAP, right? That's an open source tool heavily contributed to by Red Hat. But the goal is for your registered systems to Insights, you can very easily deploy these policies that take a bunch of different RHEL systems that you've got in your Insights environment, and let's say deploy them to the PCI DSS policy that Amy talked about, or any one of them that's supported. And our overarching goal within Insights Compliance is to allow customers, with the click of a few buttons, to configure these policies and deploy them on scale. Now, one thing, and it's not specific to compliance, it's almost all the services, dozen or so services that are within Insights, is the goal of Insights is to highlight a lot of different issues that might exist in your environment. They could be operational issues, security issues, business spend issues. Whenever you find any insights reported in your dashboard when you log into console.redhat.com, in most cases, you have the ability, and this is the cool part, to take a little bit of the snippet that comes around with each one of these insights in the form of an Ansible playbook and add it to a playbook and then deploy it. So we're not just telling you what's wrong, we're allowing you to remediate that with minimal overhead. And so essentially net, customers can come in, run on top of Insights Compliance, and get themselves configured, compliant, and remediated as soon as possible.
So you mentioned OpenSCAP there. Amy, could you talk a little bit more about like OpenSCAP? Like, what are the different ways you can use OpenSCAP? I mean, we obviously have the Insights Compliance that Mohit talked about, but are there other ways you can use OpenSCAP to to scan and manage your compliance on RHEL?
Sure. OpenSCAP has a scanning tool called the Workbench, where you can set it up and have it run on a system to see how compliant it is with the profile. Insights does that at scale. It is also available within Satellite, to where you can have the same compliance experience. You can analyze your systems and have them built and remediated to fit that baseline if you're running a Red Hat Satellite product. But what it does is it has Ansible tooling. It has some tailoring profiles where if you're running it on the system, it will go through and achieve all the checks that are in that profile, and it will make the changes needed to remediate the system to where it becomes compliant with that particular baseline profile.
And Brian, maybe I'll add here that the ability to customize your policies at scale, meaning, so let's say you have a PCI policy with 500 systems, and you're maybe narrowed into two minor versions of RHEL that you're using, just for example, 8.7 and 8.8. The ability to customize and edit the policies, decide which rules will be in there, change the values of certain rules is immensely easy within Insights Compliance. And that's the value of what we want to bring to these customers as a part of their RHEL subscription, is the ease with which they can monitor, deploy, and manage this.
And that was a recently added feature, right? The ability to go in and customize these different values.
Yeah, the ability to edit the rules has been there for some time, but the values, like you said, was recently released in the last quarter.
Very cool.
So I want to walk through this process. We kind of did a drive-by of Image Builder, but I want to look at building an image with this built in, and then look at at least a similar system with this report completed. But before we do, Terry, got a question come in from the audience about using Image Builder in an air-gapped environment. It's a use case we see often.
Yes, it is, in fact. So again, you can simply install a RHEL system. You can install the image builder tool in that system within your air-gapped environment. So you can have your own local build environment where you can assemble your own custom images, and then you can fully control when and how those images are shared throughout your environment. So we do include the ability to provide your cloud account credentials, and the local build node will actually push those up to your cloud account and store them in whatever uh, cloud storage bucket per se that you tell it. But it is all defined and controlled by you. So you're in full control of that process, and it's not using any hosted service or anything.
Yeah, and another thing I'll point out as well that we've been talking about a lot internally here lately is, with the image builder service on Insights, you can use that to build your image, download that, and then take it into your air-gapped environment. And it's kind of similar to downloading an ISO image off of the Red Hat website as well, and taking that into your disconnected environment. So just another way to look at it. There's a lot of different options you have here. You can of course do what Terry suggested here with running the on-premise image builder. But you also might want to consider, would it be possible to use the online service, download that image, and then just take it into my air-gapped environment?
And I see satellite being an excellent, this is a loaded term, but an excellent proxy between an online experience and an offline experience. As long as you connect your satellite often enough to pull down all the recent packages, then point image builder at satellite, you get the full experience there, but you don't have to be connected out to the internet. So Refractor, hopefully that answers your question. In fact, I mentioned being in some planning meetings lately, and I wanted to ask a question of the audience. This isn't reflective of Red Hat's direction. This is something we're talking about. So I wanted to ask a question of the audience. So please put it in the comments or the chat because this is something we're actively discussing. What features would need to be introduced into a tool like Image Builder for Image Builder to become your default front door to RHEL? Instead of going and building an ISO and then customizing that ISO, you basically can build your own. You can build your own VM template. You can build your own ISO. You can build your own things. What features is Image Builder lacking? Or is it there today for you to default to Image Builder to define your RHEL 8, your RHEL 9 systems? So this is something we're talking about actively. What do we need? What are we missing? What are our audience excited about? I know for me, being able to add third-party repositories was a huge feature as recently. Being able to add some of the security policies that we're about to demonstrate is something that came up in my thinking of when I was a systems administrator administering Oracle RAC databases. What kind of features was I missing? So things like that are things that come up often. And so that's one of the things that Terry and I work with on a regular basis is not just what we have, but what do we need? What do we need, and what are we looking to introduce? So put that in the comments. And this is a good chance while Terry gets his demo pulled up. This is a good chance for you to hit that subscribe button, and that way you get notified anytime we go live. Also hit that like button, share it with a friend. The more you all engage with us over each of these videos, the more often we can, the more that this information gets out, but also it helps grow the channel and grow the type of content that we can create. So Terry, you ready for your demo?
Yeah, let me share my screen again.
Okay. So take that, Brian. You love talking about system roles and new features. I put out a feature request.
Yeah,
So,
and I like that. And another thing to bring up too is like with Image Builder, it's amazing like how many new features have been introduced over like the last year or so. Like that's one of the benefits of like the Insights model is we can quickly iterate and deliver new features. So if you looked at Image Builder like a year ago and you look at it today, there's going to be a massive difference, and a lot of new functionality, things like customizing the file system, stuff like that, that people were asking for. A lot of improvements in those areas. So if you looked at it a year ago and it wasn't quite what you wanted, definitely check it out again today and see all the improvements that have been made to it.
It's funny. File system was one of the features I was thinking about that a year ago was not there.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So I'm really excited to see how much it's grown, how much it's changed, and I'm really excited to be a part of the image builder team here at Red Hat. There's just so many cool things going on. It's such a game changer when it comes to building out consistent images and deploying them pretty much everywhere.
So
Terry, I need to build a new image. Mandates come down that we've got a new payment card system that's going in. And I heard these crazy people on YouTube tell me that this image builder thing could do it for me. So let's create an image.
Yes, absolutely. So from my image builder screen here, is that big enough for you to all see? Okay.
Yeah, looks good.
Actually,
So I'm just-
maybe back it down just one. I think we were in a good place. Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, formatting gets weird. But don't mess this up, Terry, because I just saw Mark has joined us in the chat, and J-Scar. Welcome, everybody.
No pressure.
So yeah, Eric, you mentioned how much it has changed over the last year or so. So what you're looking at is a relatively new UI design where we're presenting a few different mental model workflows. We have blueprints, images, and sources. So I can come over here to source, and again, this is the local on-prem version of Image Builder. And so by default, it's set up to use the repositories that are defined by this version of RHEL 9. So this happens to be running RHEL 9.2. So it's going to build RHEL 9.2 images. You can configure other custom repos. So you could say add source, and you could define another repository. So if I had locally mirrored, another version, you can coax it into building different versions. However, that workflow, we're really focusing on the insight service so that we could enable a user to build different versions of RHEL, even with using different RHEL add-ons such as extended update service and things like that. So, if you needed to stay on 9.2 for longer than the 6-month release cycle for whatever reason, we're looking forward to in the future being able to provide that ability. But on the local machine, you can coax it to do other things, or even if you have your own content that your own application that you build RPMs for, or you maintain a local repository of third-party applications, you can actually define your locally hosted repository, and Image Builder can pull that content in. A really good example is you can NVIDIA publishes their latest NVIDIA drivers and the CUDA packages in a public-facing YUM-compatible repository. So I can Google NVIDIA's documentation for those repos. I could define them here, and it could pull those packages in. Another great one is Microsoft SQL Server is another one where they publish a public-facing repository, and you can pull that content in when you're doing the build. And so we have our images section and then blueprints. So I'm going to focus on blueprints, and rather than start from scratch to save time, I'm going to go ahead and modify this existing one. So you can see we have create image, export blueprint, delete blueprint. We're further refining the edit, create, clone, copy kind of workflows that we're exploring. But I'll go ahead and click on this, and because I have long values pre-populated for some of these. So we can see a really quick overview of a lot of characteristics that I have heavily customized this. So for example, file system, you can see I've predefined quite a few file systems here. I've predefined what services I want enabled and what services I want exposed via the local firewall service. I've defined my time zone. I've predefined a few users with both passwords and public SSH keys pre-populated so that I can easily log into this. Now, depending on your authentication requirements, you may not want to pre-populate a password. Different organizations have different policies. Many use a default password, and then they have automation that immediately after launching it automatically changes that, and they have their own process for rotating default passwords on a regular basis. Or you can leave it blank, no password, and simply rely on that SSH key being present to log in and manage it. So
And
this is
and
just an
something
example.
to point out real quick is you didn't have to come up with all this from scratch. And in fact, we'll get into it here in just a minute, but some of the file systems and some of the kernel parameters were pre-populated when we choose to use a security profile.
Yes, it is. So I'll show you a command here in just a moment. That's going to just show you how it creates that and helps you out. And that's exactly what I did. I used our OpenSCAP tooling, and it has an option where you specify the policy that you care about and tell it to output a blueprint. And it'll output a rough estimate blueprint that predefine my kernel append values. So I did not have to come up with this on my own. It provided that for me. It provided a basic layout of mount points that were required in order to meet the minimum requirement for that compliance profile. In this case, I'm using the CIS level 2 policy is what I used. And it also predefined some requirements that like that policy dictates by default, it dictates that NFS server and RPC bind should not be allowed, should be explicitly disabled as services. And so I use that as my starting point, and I further customized my blueprint according to my additional desires. So it was a great way where the tool helps me get a jump start covering the basics. And then I was further able to tweak this according to my opinion of what my RHEL should look like. So I can go ahead and click Edit Blueprint, and you can just walk through all of these settings. It gives you a nice wizard experience. So you can see here, my opinion is I want these packages pre-installed as part of my definition of what RHEL should look like. This is my gold image, if you will.
RHEL system roles and cockpit. That looks like a good list of packages there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What else do you need? If you have RHEL system roles and cockpit, you're most of the way done. And let's see, what else do I have here? I'm also pre-inserting Red Hat Connect, and the Insights client, I think, is already installed by default, or RHC pulls that in. So I also have an opinion that my systems will be managed by Insights. So I can just click next, and I can add additional kernel customizations, append additional kernel parameters. But this is one that was recommended by the default profile. Here's where you can further customize the file systems. And so with this additional field, you can specify, we predefined a list of the root, these directory paths coming off of the root file system, but you can add any combination underneath that. So if you have, like /var/Oracle, or something like that, you can add additional paths to go deeper, and you can predefine the size. And yeah, so I don't want to go through all of these in too much detail, but we give you much of the ability to customize just about everything you need from your base image that you're going to need in order to have a very customized experience. And then let's see, I already kicked off a build here. Let's see the status of it.
So Terry, could you pull back up that blueprint just real quick?
Yeah.
So did you cover the OpenSCAP section over there on the right, the data stream and profile?
Excellent point. I forgot to do that. So this is the section where you actually specify the data stream file, and the OpenSCAP tool calls it the profile ID, but we're generally calling it the policy, the security compliance policy, because that's what it really is. And so for the tooling, the OpenSCAP project works very closely with all of the government and compliance organizations, and they agree on these standards. And this is the default policy that is shipped with our RPM packages for this tooling, in agreement with those standards bodies and everyone involved that collaborates on defining those. And so profile CIS is basically CIS L2. There's also a CIS L1, PCI DSS, and a whole bunch of others. And so these are the only values that I need to input in order to apply that default policy. Now we are exploring what is the experience needed when a customer needs to tailor this or customize their policy file according to the rules that their organization defines. And I'll let Mohit or Amy talk a little bit about the details of how a customer decides what additional rules to add, or maybe rules that they exclude for a variety of reasons. But right now the tool is just focused on the default policies, and we have future features where we are going to collaborate with the Insights compliance team, where the Insights service will allow you to create that tailored, customized policy file. And our image builder tool would be able to retrieve that from your account and include that into the build. And that's something our engineering teams are starting to look at now. And we hope to have that in the not too distant future. Amy or Mohit, anything you want to add on those topics?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Terry. So, with regards to your point earlier about how do users add or subtract certain rules from a policy, if you're familiar with these policies, they can literally have hundreds, if not sometimes 1,000 different checks, and they're called rules in OpenSCAP terminology. And a certain policy has a certain number of rules, but your organization may have slightly varying needs. So the ability to go in and choose which rules you do or don't need is sort of dictated by your security department and them telling you, Terry, I don't need this one. I don't need this one. But there's identifiers and whatnot. But then that's one level of customization. The other level of customization that Ryan touched upon earlier is, you might, just by way of example, you might have a rule for password length. And let's say the default is password length is 10 characters. But your security organization says, no, we have to have at least 15 characters. You can go in and do that level of customization. And it's really driven by your organization's appetite and posture towards security. All of that is really easy to configure. And making sure that when customers are using Insights Compliance in and of itself, or through the image builder service, we want that consistency across the board so that we minimize any sort of overhead for our users. Amy, feel free to add on if I've missed anything.
Yeah, no, all I was going to say was, because we know that you would be spending the time if you just had the initial baseline framework that you're trying to be compliant with, right? And you have customizations that you need to make. If you're not able to do it at build time, you're going to take time going through and customizing it yourself. So we're doing everything we can to allow you to get all of the hardening and all of the customizations done at the time of building the machine, so that you don't have to go back and make sure that you've gotten everything set to your particular set of requirements, and that way you don't have systems that are snowflakes. Everything is consistent and looks exactly the same, and you're compliant to the level of compliance that you have set for your business.
So we've had some discussions going on in the chat here about customizing the image as far as like custom config or running a custom script on boot up. Terry, I know that there's been some work done. I don't remember if it was 9.2 or if it's coming up in 9.3 where you can add in like a custom configuration file into Etsy. Can you briefly talk about that and the capability to potentially run like a one-shot systemd service if you want to do some customization like that?
Yeah, I don't have a demo of that ready and prepared, but it was added, I'm pretty sure, to 9.2. So the core capability is there, where in your blueprint file, you could say, and let me just show you what that blueprint file looks like. So here from the graphical interface or the command line, I forget which, but I connected to the image builder service, and I said, save this blueprint as a local file, and it saves it as a TOML file, which is a type of markup file. So I can go ahead and view that, and we can see this is the same thing that you were seeing on the web GUI screen a moment ago, where I've got my basic description. We define all the packages that I care about. And as I scroll down here, you can see I define my user information, my demo public SSH key, all this other stuff. But file system. So down here is where I have my security compliance policy. So there's a new directive where you can specify, I want to write a config file in the /etc directory. So you can, if you have a common configuration, you can actually embed that as part of the blueprint, and it'll ensure that that gets written to that config file. So along with that, with what Brian is talking about, you can actually write a systemd unit file and specify all the parameters so that it's a run once at boot up. So what that means is it would actually run that systemd unit file, which you just so happen to specify to be maybe a shell script or a Python script, or call the Ansible Ansible core command to initiate a playbook or something like that, whatever you want. And it would enable you to essentially say, I want to execute this script, this set of code at boot time, only one time, so it won't repeatedly get done every time the system boots. Or you could specify that you do want it to execute every time an instant boots. It's completely your choice. And that really helps to satisfy a need that we heard expressed a lot by customers from their Anaconda installer Kickstart days, where when they did a standard build, they would have the post-install section execute sometimes very extravagant or very simple and basic scripts as part of their standard build process. And so that serves that need. I didn't know we were going to touch on that so much today, so I didn't have anything prepared for that. But we're going to be promoting that more and more. So Brian and I have been collaborating on, I think, at least 3 different variations of ideas around that. And so over the coming months, we'll be talking about that more with probably blog posts, maybe another discussion here on this channel, and other methods.
Yeah, I'd love to see this process get to a point where I could include all of my system role configurations in this build process so that on first boot, all my system roles are already in place and have already done their thing.
Yeah, and we have the foundation for that right now. So with what Terry is saying, you could basically do that today. It'd be a little bit more work with writing a systemd unit to kick that off, but yeah, if you have any feedback on this, we'd definitely like to hear it in the future. So,
Right. So shifting gears, we've defined we've defined a blueprint. Terry showed us briefly that he created an image. Now, Mohit, would you mind walking Terry through the insight side? Talk about the different profiles that are in insights, and hopefully we can get a report that we can send over to our manager to replace that Excel spreadsheet we were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Terry, if you wouldn't mind doing the actual demo while I speak to what I want you to do. So as you can see here on the console right now, Terry's in the security space. The three services are there. And first, what you want to do is we'll actually go ahead and configure a policy. So if you go one node down further under SCAP policies, Terry, on the left-hand navigation, this is the place where you define a policy. And I think it's worthwhile pointing out here, we have chosen the word policies, and it's sort of interchangeable with policies profiles. So, OpenSCAP calls this profiles, but what we are essentially saying here is you've got a policy that is defined for a set of systems and a specific benchmark and whatnot. But let's go ahead through the process. You can see here a bunch of different policies that exist. If you scroll up to the top, Terry, and you'll see the Create Policy button, it's going to walk you through a wizard. And the first thing that you have to do here is select what version of RHEL. And this is really important, what major version of RHEL. We'll talk about this as we walk through this wizard, but many of our users don't necessarily know that the SCAP security version that's out there is very specifically tied to a minor version of RHEL. And if you're not hip to this idea, you could easily configure yourself in a misconfigured state or get erroneous reporting. We have within Insights Compliance taken care of that for you so that you don't end up in that state. So let's just say for now, assuming, Terry, you have a bunch of different RHEL versions of the RHEL 9 here. Let's choose a RHEL 9 here. And we'll say, is there a policy that we haven't used here, CIS or maybe PCI on the next page? Bottom right, just click on the next page.
Let me just search. I haven't used the CISL one. We could try that.
Yeah, let's try that CIS one at the top. The first one is okay. And I think that before you go hit next, you'll see it says supported versions 9.0, 9.1, 9.2. This is important. When these policies get supported on a minor version, could differ based on just bandwidth cycles and whatnot, but this CIS policy is supported on those versions. In theory, it could have been possible for this specific policy to have started in 9.1 and 9.2, and we would prevent you from shooting yourselves and selecting 9.0 hosts in that environment. So now if you click next, Terry, there's some details that we can ask of the user just to identify a certain number of things. I'll point out maybe the fifth item here, compliance threshold. For many organizations, it might be okay that you're 100% compliant, but we actually put this in based on feedback from customers that said, look, I don't need to be 100% compliant. I can be 95% compliant. So we can put that in and say next. And here's where you select the systems that are eligible for you to be able to choose. Now, what I was afraid of is happening here, and that's okay. Based on the systems Terry currently has registered to his current environment, we only see, you'll see on the fourth column, RHEL 9.2 systems. By chance, Terry, do you have an environment with RHEL 8 that has a more larger variety of systems, or is that not possible?
I do not in this demo.
No worries, I can speak to it. So go ahead and select the second system here, just by way of example. And
I think I already, I'm gonna do the first one.
Okay, and don't click next just yet, but I will mention, had Terry selected, let's say there were 9.1 systems here, 9.0 systems here. When we go to the next page in this wizard, I'm gonna point out something that you won't be able to see, but you'll have to conceptualize. So let's say next right now. And this is important. This is perhaps the most important screen of this whole policy wizard, and Terry's highlighting it right now. It doesn't look like it, but where it says 9.2 and there's this underline, that's a tab. Had Terry selected 9.1 systems and 9.0 systems, you would have seen two other tabs there. And what you highlighted earlier with the SSG version, if you could do it again, Terry, the RHEL 9.2 version of RHEL requires this SSG version. This is the SCAP security guide. That's what SSG means. 9.1 and 9.0 could very well have different SCAP security guide versions. And what's interesting is you'll see right below where Terry's highlighting, it says 270 rules selected. The number of rules for 9.2 could differ from that of 9.1, could differ from that of 9.0. And we've taken care of this for you. This allows you to get the right set of rules to begin with your baseline so that you can't misconfigure this. Now, if you are using OpenSCAP out of the box on your own on RHEL, if you don't know this, you could really go ahead and misconfigure. And then now if you expand, Terry, for a second, below in the table, you see system settings and services. Let's go ahead and do something here. In the filter by name at the top of the table, could you just say password? So we're looking for a rule that has a password, and go ahead and expand that first one, Terry, the first rule. Let's see if we go down further. Is there a value that we can edit here? There is. So first of all, I want to show you what you can do. So here with that pencil mark, that means it's an editable value. So go ahead and edit it and say, just put in a different value of some sort. That value editing is very specific to your organization's requirements and posture. And Terry can just, by the click of that check, accept that value. And all 9.2 systems, RHEL 9.2 systems that are in this policy will now have that part of their, have that be a part of their tailoring file. We try to abstract the tailoring file away from the users, but behind the scenes, that's what's happening, right? So you can go ahead and configure the value there. And just for kicks, Terry, if you can collapse this whole rule again, once more for a second. You see the 270 at the top of the table still. Now, take that second rule, Terry, and uncheck the box that's checked. And watch that number go from 270 to 269. It's that easy to unselect a rule. And now this rule has been unselected for all the versions or all the systems that are RHEL 9.2. Now, granted, you have to do this for 9.1 and 9.0 systems, and maybe in the future 9.3 and 9.4. But this ability to do this in a systematic way with this interface makes it super simple, right? Now, let's go ahead and click next, where you then as a user get to see what you've configured at a high level. In this case, we have a very simple environment. So we've got one policy, but theoretically, you could have had 500 RHEL 9.2 systems, and everything that you did on that one page would have applied to all of them. Now go ahead and say finish, Terry, and then return to application, and you will see this policy appear. This is the first one in the table. At this point, you've gone ahead and configured something and deployed it at scale. Now, behind the scenes, there's a couple of things that are worth pointing out. You should have OpenSCAP deployed on all the systems in this policy. For now, you can go ahead and script or use potentially Ansible to deploy this policy and execute it. Now, what happens is behind the scenes, when you execute this policy on the number of systems that are in it, each system reports a report back. And so if you had 500 systems in that policy, you'd get 500 reports. Now, Terry, you go to the reports section on the left-hand navigation. We have to do use our imagination here, right? We don't have an active report that's representing what I'm about to speak to. But let's say this policy here was tied to 500 systems. What you see here in this view, if you click that link right at the top there, yep. You come into a view where we summarize for you essentially all the systems that are in that policy. And this table shows you row by row the system by system level of compliance, and we summarize it at the top. And if you scroll up to the top, Terry, what you can see here for our viewers is you can download this in a PDF format, and you can choose the level of information you want. You want non-compliant systems, you want systems that haven't reported, you want unsupported configurations even. That's not something you're going to be able to do without a lot of manual effort if you're using OpenSCAP and RHEL, right? This is huge for customers to be able to get this level of granularity. And if you are unsupported, we will actually show you how to get supported through, and I don't think we can demonstrate this to you right now, but we will take you to a page on our customer portal. Here, Terry is showing you the PDF version of essentially the same data that's in the built-in reporting if you go back to the main page. But here it shows you the rules that are broken, the level of compliance and whatnot. So this is very powerful. And if you're an organization that has to give a report to your auditors once a quarter, once a month, whatever it is, this is an elegant report that you can give them, and you can choose the level of information you want.
Yeah, this is great, and this is directly replacing that 1,000-line spreadsheet that Eric was talking about at the beginning of the episode.
That's very right. Go back to the previous page if you won't mind, Terry. And if you go down a little bit and look at that first system, if you click on that system name, we let you go in more granular. For this system now, you can go ahead and see, and let's do something. Instead of expanding it all, let's say I want to know all the critical rules that have failed. So if you do use that drop-down filter, Terry, just a little bit where it says name and say severity and filter by high severity. What this does is now it shows you, and now you can expand. And I want you to do something, Terry, right at the top of the table, next to the remediate button, further right, you see these two icons at the top. Go a little bit higher, right there. Click that one. Yep. And what you'll see here is the view changes. There's a nested view and there's this flat file view. And what's interesting is you have this very easy mechanism to be able to triage all the critical severity rules, and you can focus on those. Now you can do your triaging to your heart's content. And Terry was highlighting this a little bit earlier. On the right-hand column, you see what has a playbook and what doesn't. As I mentioned earlier in the discussion, most of these rules have a snippet of code that is Ansible playbook friendly. And so you can go ahead and maybe, Terry, you want to do this, scroll up to the top and select the checkbox right there where it says 0, selected. And now you've taken all these rules that are of critical nature and click the remediate button, Terry. And you can add them to a playbook. And this next part is something that doesn't just apply to compliance, it's across Insights as a whole. As you find issues, whether it's in compliance, vulnerability, patch, advisor, drift, what have you, you can keep adding the snippets of playbook. And when it comes time for your deployment patch window, as you've been adding these up, you take this playbook, depending on if you have Ansible automate, not Ansible, what am I thinking? Tower, right? If you have Tower, you can do it automatically. If you don't have Tower, you can script it, but it's that easy to go through compliance and the rest of the insights that the product provides you, and making sure that your organization is running an efficient, secure environment. I hope that helps to give some perspective on how easy it is to configure, manage, and then report on these things, as well as remediate them.
And we were looking at just a single system. Imagine blowing this out over thousands of systems in multiple different environments, different regions, different policies. Now all of a sudden you have like a 2-page colored PDF that you can then send to your manager and go, look, we're still compliant, instead of digging through, 100,000 line Excel sheet that requires a laptop that's newer than 2013.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. The Red Hat engineering team has worked very diligently to make this very user-friendly and operationally efficient. And we want Insights Image Builder to be able to use the same thing, because why not, right? Make it simple, make it consistent.
So as we start wrapping up here, Mo, could you talk a little bit about what's coming in the future with Insights Compliant? What are you working on? What's exciting that's going to be coming down in the future?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things that are on the plan. One of the requests that we seem to be getting quite often from our customers is, look, I've got a policy, and I've got a policy for CIS like Terry just did for RHEL 9, but there's a limitation today that we can only have one of those. We want to be able to have multiple policies, maybe different for different versions. That's one of the most frequent requests. The other one is, look, I have a special need to be able to save these reports. Terry was able to download a report, but there's some nuances there, save as, and save as for a specific version. but there's some enhancements to reporting that are coming up as well. And this SSG thing, right? One specific version of SSG for RHEL 9.2, another one for 9.1, another one for 9.0. There's some complexity there and some redundancy. We're working with Amy and the RHEL team to see if we can optimize that. But those are just a few of the things on the back burner, and there's a lot more as well.
And Mark in the chat, he's also part of our team as well. Wanted to point out the fact that all of this, everything that we've shown you today, is included in your RHEL subscription. So if you have a sub, whether it's developer for individuals, whether it's standard, whether it's thousands of premium subscriptions, you have access to insights. All you have to do is register your systems and you get access to all of this. There's no hidden fees. No one will call. Well, no one will call any more than they usually do anyway. But all this is included in your subscription. And I mean, even just in the chat, we were discussing, there was some conversation going on about using a systemd unit file that targets first boot to then run a series of Ansible playbooks to do further customization. I mean, there's just so much that this can cover. And in fact, there's a mention of infrastructure as code. And now Image Builder has an API. You can export blueprints out of Image Builder and store them in a Git repository or on a network share somewhere. So you can trigger actions using the APIs. So you always have a fresh build. Or like I do here in my home lab, I actually have a job set up to run, I think every Saturday overnight or something, that just builds a new 9.2 image for my home lab. So in case I get on a call like this and it's just like, I need a RHEL system. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I just need a system. I can just go and pull a copy of that image. So there's just so many things you can do to start building RHEL into the heart of your pipeline. As you can tell, I get really excited about the idea of building out new systems. But we are at the top of the hour, so I'll go around the horn real quick and get any last thoughts. Brian, we'll start with you.
Yeah, just wanted to thank Mohit, Amy, and Terry for being on. This was a great episode. Thanks so much for explaining all this information, and just really encourage everyone watching, go check all this out. We also have a couple of labs. If you go to lab.redhat.com, where you can try out various parts of Insights or Image Builder. So if you want to get some hands-on experience with it, go check those out.
Terry, closing thoughts.
Just thank you. Definitely stay tuned, because Brian and Amy and Mohit, we have a big backlog of future ideas, enhancements, usability improvements. We're really excited about what the next 3, 6, 12 months are going to look like. It's just going to keep getting better and better. So we're super excited.
Amy, I feel like we didn't give you much time in the spotlight. So closing thoughts.
Well, it's okay. I've been actively contributing to Terry's backlog, so we're bringing a lot of more security features into the Image Builder, especially looking at the Image Builder and the management services there and connecting all that with Insights. We're trying to tie it all together. We're trying to bring you things that you need to be able to use to do good security, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you. But thanks. This has been fun.
Well, and we'll be seeing more of Amy and Nate on this show, because we're doing more security related content. We've got plans for further looks at identity tools.
Identity and passwordless is coming.
Yes, we've got a ton of content coming up in the coming months. So stay tuned for more of Amy. Mohit, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to thank you again for having us on here. If you haven't used Insights Compliance before, hopefully you get a sense of what it is and how we're working hard to make it easier for you to stay compliant, operationally efficient. There's a tremendous amount of collaboration happening within the teams and the individuals that are here. And we hope you enjoy using the products and find it very easy. And as Terry mentioned, there's a lot of good stuff coming down the pipeline here, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, if you go back and look at the keynotes from Summit 23, which was already months ago, but this past May, you'll hear, I think it was Stephanie. I think Stephanie actually presented on our expanded commitment to Red Hat Insights. So everything that you can do today is has just been almost a teaser of what is to come. There's so much integration that's going on, and the beauty of going from a 6-month release cadence to having a hosted service means that we can iterate much faster on the service. And I've seen us test out features as part of preview mode in Insights, and then it show up refined and cleaned up and ready to go for the next minor version of RHEL. So we kind of got the best of both worlds there. So tons of content coming out, tons of new features. And as Brian said earlier, if you haven't tried out Image Builder in the last year, I don't think you've tried out Image Builder at all. And I noticed that Nate is still with us in the audience, and he heard me volunteer him for more content. So speaking of which, Nate and I will talk about System D in a blog or something. Maybe he and I'll collaborate on one, because I'm really excited to try that out. That sounds like an awesome idea. T-Money, he had one other thought.
Yes, I wanted to emphasize, if you are already using RHEL images provided by the cloud marketplaces, you can use all of this. No extra subscription purchase is required. Insights provides a mapping between your Red Hat accounts and your cloud account, so that we can detect, yes, this person already paid for that. It give them the full value and capabilities. So if you're already running RHEL in the cloud from third-party marketplace images, all of this is available to you. So it significantly extends your ability to manage your systems running in any cloud environment. No extra purchase required.
Love it. If I could send this back to the 2011, 2012 version of myself, I would have retired by now. Alrighty, folks. So coming up this Friday, we're talking about something on Enter the Terminal. Scroll to the right part of my episode guide. File management tasks. So we are we're doing a series of back to basics of, okay, cool, I listened to this image builder presentation and I installed RHEL, and now I see a login prompt. Now what do I do? So we're going to talk about some file management tasks. Since everything inside Linux is a file, we're going to start there. And then Mr. Brian, here in 2 weeks, hopefully this time, we will have the RHEL development story, the RHEL open source story with Mike McGrath and the VP of Linux himself, Gunnar Hellickson. That was supposed to be today, and then we found out that Gunnar was going to be at a Summit Connect event, so it might be hard to be at an event talking to customers and then on this talking to customers. So we pushed that out in 2 weeks. Which, by the way, thank you to the three of you for jumping in very last minute to throw this together. This was really awesome. I work with this several times a week, producing new content, writing blogs, answering questions, but getting to just sit back and watch it work, just really exciting. I love what we're working on. So thank you all for joining us live, or if you're watching after the fact, make sure to give us a like and throw some thoughts into the comments, particularly feature requests around Red Hat Insights and Image Builder as well, whether that's the on-prem or the hosted service. But until then, we shall see you all on Friday. And on behalf of Terry, Amy, Mohit, Brian, myself, and the entire Red Hat Enterprise Linux team, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.